We're in war. This is spear, he thrust. This is a block to cut and kill. Because I'm killing him. That's why I'm blocking, because I'm blocking, when you have a weapon, it works. Because I'm gonna get on the inside to cut and kill. That I'm cutting here, I'm getting in. That's what it's for. But when you don't have a weapon, when you train karate for 10 years, you don't know this stuff, and you're practicing the same movements, like this, you know what it's for. You think that it's blocking is what I do in a real fight. It's not. But that's not what it was designed for. Straight punch, I come this way, the same block. Now I'm cutting the arm from slashing and cutting. Or again, I can come this way. But now see, I'm making from the outside, I'm cutting and I'm cutting. Same concept. Is that now I can practice these movements. So then I don't have a weapon and he does overhand. Now I do the same movement to cut. That's what it's for. Block, low block, cut in the face. That same block you see, I've seen so many times. What do you use block for? They don't know. Because you can't do this in real life. It's not gonna work in real life. But if a blade, now it works. These blocks are not for empty-hand combat. That's where martial arts came from. Martial arts was not this, it was not this stuff you see today. It was deadly stuff, it was secret techniques to kill people as fast as possible. That was the whole point. Why do martial arts block? If you're a martial artist, chances are you get this wrong. You don't know the answer. I've asked many black belts, why do we do these blocks? Why? All of them don't know. They told me they don't know. In this video, you need to watch, you're gonna save this video. I'm gonna go over completely why we use blocks, how they're effective, why they work, because in reality, from my experience, when you get in a fight, these blocks do not work. So why do we use them? Why do they work? So to kick off this video, I'm gonna do a brief demonstration, show the stuff like you saw a little bit in the intro. Then we'll come back to the whiteboard and actually talk about, show you, and go over the history of why we use blocks, how they were developed, and what this stuff's actually for. It's gonna be a really good video. Obviously, you saw the intro, it's gonna be really good. Subscribe, we're gonna get right in. With that out the way, let's get into the demonstration. Why do we use blocks? Let's go. So, I'm gonna answer the question, why do we block in martial arts? Why do we do this movement? What is it for? I'll be honest, most martial artists suck. I think, and I believe, that 70% of martial artists should not be teaching. I see too many guys that teach stuff, and they're not even that good. They teach stuff they don't even know what to do. I've asked many of black belts, why do we do these how would I use these blocks in real life? You know what they tell me? I don't know. Black belts, guys have been doing it 10 years. Why do we do these blocks? What are they for? None of them know. And it's a shame that a 22-year-old has to come on here and tell you guys how to do it and actually show you how it's done. So that's what we're gonna be doing. Why do we use blocks? Why is it working? And why do the blocks not work in a real life setting? Because in reality, this is a guy I don't know. In reality, he wants to hurt me. I see a lot of fake stuff online. I'm doing the lockout punches and all this stuff. No, in real life, this guy wants to hurt me. He's not gonna stop hitting me until I'm on the ground. So in reality, if I try to block, he's gonna keep hitting me. So hit me. He's gotta keep hitting me. So now, I'm just gonna try to block. If I just block, you see how, and he's not even really trying. Cause like, I'm the bad guy. If I'm the bad guy, I'm swinging all crazy. That's what you see in fights. The guys come at him. It's movement, it's power, it's speed. You can't block. Those blocks do not work. Because obviously, if you block, first of all, he doesn't know what I'm gonna do, first of all. So when I so when I punch, I'm gonna keep attacking. So notice that if he shows up, I'm already hitting him. Or if he locks out, just block like this, bam. Blocks, I'm gonna just keep punching. It doesn't work. Why does it not work? Think about it. The founders definitely weren't idiots. The guys who made the styles, they were good, they were smart. Because blocking are for weaponry. Because in combat, when you talk about combat, fighting, war, martial arts, because that's what it is, it's combat. To win the engagement, you want to be offensive. So when you talk about empty-hand combat, I want to be offensive. JKD, intercepting. I want to be offensive. Because if I block, if I block, now he's going to keep hitting me. I have to make him stop hitting me. Therefore, I must hit him. I must attack him. That's why you do not want to block. Blocking is last resort. And I'll explain why. I'll explain actually how to use it in a second. But in reality, if we're trying to fight like square up, I want to hit first. I want to hit first and intercept him. Why? Because that stops him from hitting me, because we discussed. If I block, he's going to keep attacking me. I have to do something to hit him so he stops attacking me. Right, because again, we're fighting again. I want to be fast enough to hit him. I want to hit him in the eyes, the knee. I need to hit this guy before he moves in on me. If I need to block, or if I block, it's the last resort, but it has to be offensive anyway. If I block, it has to be offensive. I have to be hitting him while I do it. So like if he swings with a swing punch, I can cover at the same time throwing an elbow. That's one way to do it. Or do front kick. I'm gonna block with the elbow, hitting him. Round kick, here we go. I'm gonna hit with the elbow to come in and hit. That's for empty-hand combat, it's always offensive, I'm hitting him. Then when I block, the block is a punch, but in reality, I am attacking, I am hitting with something, I'm gonna here, I'm punching, I am attacking him. That's the whole point. The blocking comes into weaponry. The reason why we do these movements is because, I'll go on the board in a second, the way it used to be done, historically, martial arts started with weapons. With weapons. Why? Because that's what we use to kill people. That all the old martial arts used to start with weaponry to kill and later develop the empty hand skill we have. So a lot of the forms that you see, a lot of the time were performed with weapons. And that the movement is just to practice the motion. So when I have a weapon, it makes sense because, yet again, if I do the block, did I do a straight punch? Do a block. Okay, see, that didn't even work. But obviously he can hit me. This is something to do. It's very dumb to do, right? That's why in modern day he punches. I'm parrying, keep punching. I'm parrying and hitting. I'm parrying, hitting. But the blocking worked because with weaponry, that's what the blocking was used for. Because now I have a knife, do it, punch me again, I'm blocked. If I blocked, this is a cut, I'm cutting in. I'm cutting, punch again. This, see, same block, I didn't cheat, same block. But now, this block now, I'm here cutting in the face. That's what the blocking's for. They practice the forms, so when they did not have weapons, they could practice the movements of what to do when they had a weapon. Right, the other one. That's what they're all used for. Because when you talk about martial arts, traditional arts, all the traditional martial arts had weapons, used weapons. I want you to watch this video, because later I'm gonna go over and explain why this works and how it developed. But that's how it works. That's how it works. Now, let's say we have swords and we're fighting, we're doing something. If you shoot about midsection, now I'm gonna do this down block. To come in and cut. To do it again. To come here and cut, or to cut. I'm sorry. I'm cutting him when I block. That's why we use the blocks in the weaponry. Or do like a top of the head too. Now, I'm doing a roof block. That's what this block is. This block. When do you use this block? When did we do this? And no one knows. Because yet again, in real life, I'm not gonna do this block. But now, if I have a weapon, this is a roof block. That if it comes over the head, I'm coming over here to slice and slice and slice. If you have a knife, do it again. Let's say now, in real life, it's combat, it's war, I have armor on. If it's the same motion, I have armor on. But now I can come in and I can cut. It's offense. I'm using this as an advantage. Yet again, if I have the knife and he doesn't, but it's still some sort of overhand swing. Overhand swing. This is the same motion to cook and to cut. That with the blade, with the knife, with a weapon, all the blocking makes sense. Yet again, let's say I have armor on, he has armor on, we're in war, This is spear, and he thrust. This is a block to cut and kill. Because I'm killing him. That's why I'm blocking, because blocking, when you have a weapon, it works. Because you're able to get on the inside to cut and kill. But when you don't have a weapon, when you train karate for 10 years, you don't know this stuff, and you're practicing the same movements, like this, you know what it's for. You think that it's blocking is what I do in a real fight. It's not. But that's not what it was designed for. Because the guys 1,000 years ago, when they had a knife, they knew how to kill somebody. That's the whole point. They never have a knife, do a straight punch again. That I'm cutting here, I'm hitting in. That's what it's for. Right? If you back up, if he does a kick, do a kick. Block, low block, cut him in the face. That same block you see, I've seen so many times. Booyah! What did he was blocked for? They don't know. Because you can't do this in real life. It's not gonna work in real life. But if a blade, now it works. That's the whole point. So, to go over the blocks again, very slow and simply, for weapons, and to go over each one, these are designed for some sort of straight attack. It could be a thrust of a spear or a sword, because yet again, in real life I'm gonna have armor on as well, because yet again, this is used in war to kill. But for this instance, if he does a punch, straight punch, I come this way, the same block, now I'm cutting the arm, slashing, cutting, or again, I can come this way, but now see I'm making from the outside, I'm cutting. Same concept. If he does some sort of overhead swing, whether it be a spear, this could be an axe, a spear, or just a punch. Do it again. It could be a punch. This is when this block comes in. This is also a roof block. So now I can cut in. It's also, yet again, it's also a roof block. Hold it again. Because in Filipino martial arts, you see this block a lot. The reason why it's like this, because once I come around and I come through, I can hit him. Because just like in the empty hand side, it's about offense. So the whole point of the blocking is that now I can practice these movements. So that I don't want to have a weapon and he does overhand. Now I do the same movement to cut. That's what it's for. Lastly, when he does a low line attack like a kick, again. This block, I'm cutting in, I'm cutting the ankle, cutting the foot to cut in. Same motion. So when you see this next time, these blocks are not for empty hand combat. I'm gonna explain why they made it like this, why did it transform stuff to today. But the founders, people that invented this hundreds of years ago, they use it for weapons, because when you talk about martial arts, Kung Fu, karate, Filipino martial arts, all that stuff, you're talking about people that were using weapons to kill people. That's where martial arts came from. Martial arts was not this, it was not this stuff you see today. It was deadly stuff, it was secret techniques to kill people as fast as possible. That was the whole point. So now that I have a knife, you can see how rather than doing a karate guy, that's not effective. But one simple block, one simple block, he's done, he's killed. That's the point, fast and simple. Use blocking with a weapon to get on the offense. So now, I'm gonna go on whiteboard, I'm gonna explain why it's like this and when and why it changed in the history of weaponry, the history of martial arts. Because yet again, all martial arts came from weaponry. The modern day stuff, the modern day martial arts, they don't use blocking anymore because blocking does not work for empty hand combat. That's why you see in the UFC, they're covering, give me a few times, I'm parrying. I'm parrying, or I'm punching. I'm not blocking because blocking does not work for empty hand combat. Blocking is designed for weaponry. That's the point. So, we're gonna get a whiteboard, we're gonna go over it. So, we're back, got the whiteboard out, class is in session, get out your notes, get out your study material, we're gonna go over this, guys. It's gonna be a good one. Real quick, I do wanna say, it's sad that a 22-year-old, it's not a black belt, I don't hold black belt in any system, has to come out here and actually show you guys how it's done, because no martial arts that I've seen, I'll say one, Adam Chan is the only guy that show that the weaponry was where this stuff came from. He's the only guy. I've asked many black belts in several styles, they do not know why we do this blocking. Because either A, they think it works, which it does not. I don't know, they're just, and that's a problem in itself. So many guys, martial artists that teach, never even use stuff. They haven't even used their stuff to see it works, because it doesn't. So it's sad that I have to come up here and show you how it's done, because you ask these guys, they don't know. Either they're trying to pull these off in sparring and it's terrible, it doesn't work, or B, they think, oh, there's like a hidden meaning, or oh, this is like a, no, it's for weapons. Now, some of the old forms also for the movement is for grappling purposes, the grappling stuff, but I won't go into that. But for this just hard blocks, it's weaponry, and that's what we're gonna get into right here. So, we're gonna get right in, stay here. If you want to learn like my style, my method, all that stuff, in the description of this video, I have my course, only $10, and you can learn all this stuff pretty easy. I think one of the things in martial arts too is that so many guys are just money hungry. They're money hungry, they want to try to sell as much as they can. It charge the big bucks for the fancy gis and all that stuff and pay hundreds a month, but yet again, they're not that good. They never use it, they don't know how it works. And yet if you ask those guys, they don't know how this works, they don't know how to block, they don't know why to block, but my biggest goal is to try to show you stuff for free or for very little money, $10 a month, so you can get stuff and understand. So we're gonna right in. So in modern time, you will see that for empty hand combat, the best fighters don't block. Even the best boxers don't sit in here in a block. They parry. That's what you'll see in modern combat. The defense is parrying. And if I'm a great boxer, the best boxers, how do they use blocking? It's offense. It's offense, because the biggest thing, when you talk about combat, fighting, the way to win a fight is to have a good offense. I abbreviated it, you get the point. Offense. That is how you want to fight. So when you see the best fighters like a Floyd or Mike Tyson in boxing, when they use blocking to set up the striking. Always. They don't sit here like this. They don't sit here. Especially when they kickboxing, they parry. Why do I parry? Because parrying, I can punch off the parry. But when you try to block, the blocking, it takes too long and it's too slow. That's why you don't see traditional blocking in the ring. It takes it too slow. If I try to block a kick like this, I can fracture my arm. You're talking about a guy that can kick hard, a Taekwondo, Muay Thai guy, kick as hard as I can to my arm, it's gonna shatter. You don't wanna, that's where you wanna get out the way, you wanna intercept with a punch or strike, or you wanna cover, but covering, you don't wanna do that because you're really absorbing it. You wanna hit with the elbow, hit with the knee, or get out the way, or intercept, hit them. You don't wanna just sit there and block. That's a big thing. So we're going over why and where this blocking came from, but that's the biggest thing. You see the best fighters, they don't block like this. It's not because the founders were dumb. That's not it. The guys that made these systems were geniuses. And that's what we're about to go over. So, get out your notebooks, this will be a good one. But again, it's all for free. And lastly, shameless plug, if you want to learn all this real stuff, $10, anyone can afford it. So yet again, long ago, you gotta think, martial arts. How long has martial arts been around? Thousands of years, because it's been around since humans have been around. Since we've been on this earth, people have been fighting. And the whole point of martial arts, when you go back in the history, what's the point of martial arts? It's not to fight, it's not to win in duels, it's not to fight the cage, it's to kill. And so when you talk about martial arts, weapons, martial arts, all the traditional martial arts started with weaponry. Why? Because it was made to kill. With a weapon, you're able to take out whoever you're trying to fight very, very fast. That's a bad knife, but that's how it works. That's the point. So all these systems, Kung Fu, broad term, karate, jiu-jitsu, Filipino martial arts, silat, I mean, all of them came from weaponry because they were meant to kill people. When you talk about that, It's very fast. Weaponry, there is no dancing around prancing. It's like cut, the guy's dead, right? Because if he cuts his arm's cut off. If he cuts his neck, he's bleeding out. So all this stuff's very, very, very fast stuff. It's very fast movements. And so that's how martial arts started. Weaponry, how to kill. The whole reason we got to where we are now is because, yet again, you talk about weaponry. The arts are based on weaponry. And they started empty hands because it was like, well, let's say you got an army. And this army is made to fight this army. Yet again, if it's 500 years ago, because this is where martial arts originated. 500 years ago, using swords, weapons, knives, spears, axes, all that good stuff. I mean, it's very brutal stuff. So when you have armies attacking each other, they're gonna use weapons. But where it came in was like, well, if you happen to lose your spear, and if then you happen to lose your sword, and then if you lose your backup knife, everyone's got a backup knife, and then if you're alone, now you need some sort of empty hand knowledge to fight. Because now, this is like, but think, if you're on the battlefield and you lost your spear, you lost your sword, you lost your knife, you're by yourself, and now you're fighting an enemy, and you're squared off with the enemy, now you need to know some sort of hand stuff to A, incapacitate him as fast as possible so that you can find your blade on the ground. So you can find your knife. So you can find whatever. That's where traditional empty hand combat came from. It was like, well, if you're about to die because you lost your sword, you lost your spear, sword, knife, and you're by yourself, you're gonna die. But we need to work on something to where if you're in this predicament, how can you win? How can you hurt the guy enough to run back and get a weapon? That's where empty hand martial arts came from. That's the whole point. That's where jiu-jitsu, I mean, you gotta think. Jiu-jitsu. What is jiu-jitsu? Jiu-jitsu is the term for pretty much Japanese martial arts. I think it means something to the effect of like the gentle art. I think that's what it means, gentle art. So, jiu-jitsu, what is the jiu-jitsu they would do? Like, what is jiu-jitsu? So, samurai invented this, samurai, and let's say, how do they do this? It's the same predicament. It was like, well, you're a samurai. If you lose your sword, if you lose your knife, and if you're by yourself, you need to know how to do something so that, you're gonna die. But let's say, hopefully you don't die, because you're by yourself, you don't have any weapons. The guy in front of you has a sword, he's not looking good here. But now, you're gonna need to learn something to protect yourself from the evil samurai that has a sword. Pretty dangerous stuff. So what they developed, at least for the Japanese, they learned that if I can get around him and trip him, sweep him, now the guy falls on the ground. Now I can run away and get a weapon, or I can finish the fight. This is where jiu-jitsu came from. This is where judo came from. It's because they learned that, if we're fighting and you try to stab me, if I can get out the way and trip you, now you fall on the ground. Because there's weaponry involved. Now, your little sword doesn't help you because I can run away now. And now this is how all the arts evolved. They evolved from weaponry. And so, just think, commonly, yet again, this is 500 years ago. If you're training for a war, and you're training in the military, with your best buddies going to war, what do you think your training's gonna be on? Do you think your training is going to be on weaponry or empty hand? Obviously, if you're in an army, it's going to be on how to use a sword. It's going to be on how to use a sword. The least amount of time was spent on empty hand training. Why? Because it was thought that, if you have to resort to empty hand, you're going to die. Because the enemy, they have swords. They're going to kill you. So, how did they devise to do this? Most of the training back in the day was done with weapons. I want to ingrain that in your mind. So, they practiced these blocks to do with the weapons. So then now, when I'm at the training camp, chilling with my best buddies, and we're talking about the fights and wars, or whatever, or let's say I made it back home, we're at the hut. There's a hut. We're back at home and we're chilling. Now I can practice the movements of the weapon without having a weapon. This is why a lot of older arts, traditional arts, the movement is simulating a weapon. Shenghi, the spear, it's literally a spear art. This is simulating a spear, but you can practice it empty hand. And so when you're around at the barracks chilling with your buddies, or you're at home and it's peacetime, when it's peacetime, there's no war, you can practice these movements because you don't need a weapon to practice this. You don't. This is where martial arts started to evolve. Because recently, maybe like 100 or 200 years ago, now there's a little bit less wars. People aren't raiding villages as often. They're not killing and pillaging as often. Now there's peacetime. And in peacetime, a lot of these Asian countries, they banned weapons because they knew if we don't ban weapons, they're gonna kill people. Yet again, you have to understand, in real life, the way this stuff is developed, these guys, they pillage. They raid your house, they kill your family because it's about survival. And so recently in modern history, where there's peacetime, now the Chinese government, the Chinese will say, well, we're gonna ban weapons because they want peace. Ban. Now, you can look this up, this is all real. Now with banned weapons, you're not allowed to own any weapons. You're not allowed to. So, these same warriors that fought in war, that killed people, because that's something you gotta understand, these guys fought in wars and killed people regularly. So they go to war, they fight, they get the W, they win, they go back home, and now it's peacetime. They won the war, it's over, we won, hooray. Now, the government says, hey, or the king says, hey, ban weapons, we don't want any more wars. We don't want, because now if you can ban weapons, now it slows down people pillaging, going to kill people, raiding your house, raiding your family, robbery, and rape, it stops that. But now it creates a problem, because these warriors, they're bored, they don't have anything, they can't train, because yet again, most of the time they're training with weapons. So these warriors, these martial artists, would develop forms empty-handed to practice their weaponry. Because let's say I've killed many people with a knife, and I'm here, I'm fast, I'm killing people, I'm good, I'm the best. Now I come back home, it's boring, we won the war, it's over, put up your sword now. Well now, or they ban weapons, now I can practice the same movements with my empty hand. But I know that I'm not gonna fight like this. This is for when I get this. Now I can block and cut you. So now these guys are able to practice and keep up their skills with no weapons, empty hand. So a lot of the martial arts evolved from this. They evolved from warriors. They evolved from guys going to war, killing guys, went to war, won, and now they're civilians. Now there is no war. What do we do now? Well, well, I was really good with the sword, but we can't use swords anymore. There's no one to fight. And so they practiced their knowledge in the martial arts from weaponry and converted it to an empty hand system. Either A, they would practice the movements like they had a weapon but didn't, or B, they would actually develop an actual empty hand system. But if you notice this now, this is why when you go back to all systems of martial arts, all traditional, in any system that's old, any system that's older than 200 years, what do all systems usually have in common? Kung Fu, Karate, Philippines, Silat, African, Brazilian. Well, not Brazilian. Brazilian's not old enough. Japanese is older, but what you have in common is that all these arts had punching, kicking, grappling, and they all had dirty tactics. Why is that? It goes back to wartime. Yet again, they give you the scenario. All this stuff, weaponry, was designed to kill people. And soldiers, they developed it because, well, it's yet again, if I lost my sword, my knife, my friends, and I'm by myself, I need to learn something quick to hurt this guy to get away. That's where they developed a lot of eye strikes and throat strikes and groin attacks because this was effective stuff that would stun him enough to run away to get this. That's what it was for. That's why karate, any karate system, kung fu, any kung fu system, Filipino martial arts, Indonesian martial arts, European savant, they all have dirty tactics. They all have hit in the eyes, hit in the throat, hit in the groin, nerves, solar plexus. They all have those ideas because this is what they taught soldiers. Even nowadays, soldiers, the Navy SEALs, Army, Rangers, Green Berets, police, they teach people dirty tactics, eyes. They teach people, eyes, throat, groin, dirty tactics because it's quick and easy. It's quick and easy. Because when you're in a situation where you lost your weapons, you need something quick. Because yet again, in a worst case scenario, it's you and the enemy combatant. You need to hurt as fast as possible to get a weapon. That's what it was for. It was not to sit here and box. It was not to sit here and grapple. That's why a lot of jiu-jitsu in the early days, when the Japanese did this and the samurai did this, it was all locking, wrist lock, arm lock, judo throws. Why? Because if it's a throw, and I'm a samurai, I got the cool hat, samurai hat. If I throw the guy, he's on the ground, and he has a sword. He's on the ground and I can run away. Or, if I'm fighting, I'm a samurai, and I happen to throw this person, with like a judo throw, whatever. There's many names, I'm not gonna say them. Now, I've done way to where I can run. I can get a weapon, I can get a knife, I can get something. Unless if I can get a lock on him, a wrist lock, it works. It works. Yet again now, where do the locks come from? In weaponry time, if I have a knife and I see enemy combatant, if I go to grab him to try to stab him, because I'm gonna stab him, this grab is good. He can pull a lock off of this. If I grab him, he can throw me off of this. That's where it came from, right? Yet again too, if I try to stab him and he's good, this thrust, if he can catch it, he can throw me from that. He can lock me from that. That's where these arts develop, it's from weaponry. That's the whole point. Yet again, to refer, this block is a roof block. That's what it is. A roof block, if I could use a knife or if I had a longer stick, I'm coming up to come around to hit. It's offensive, it's always offensive, to hit. That's what stuff is designed for. So all martial arts came from weaponry, and the founders were so genius that they learned either ways to practice the weapons, empty hand style, and then also they just developed their own system that would work for empty hands because of peacetime. Because, yet again, if you're at war and you get to choose between practicing with a gun or practicing empty hands, you'd use a weapon. You're going to practice with a gun most of the time. And that's how it was. This stuff was for like, oh man, you're in a dangerous situation and you're about to die. Well, you need to learn something, some little hand stuff to get out of the way. But most of the warriors just is weaponry. That's why a lot of kung fu systems, wushu, you go back, they have the swords, they have the spears, because that's where it came from. And then from that, they can practice the same movement from a spear, you know? You can talk about the grappling too. These are all grappling throws and whatnot, and throws and takedowns and arm drags and all that stuff, that's good too. But that's where it came from and evolved. That's the biggest thing to understand that over thousands of years, it came to modern time, which modern time, we don't use, now when you think of martial arts, you think of karate, kung fu with empty hands, kia, but that's not how it always was. After, really 100 years ago, that's when you have things like modern karate, where now it is an empty hand martial art, primarily in some styles, because 100 years ago, now we're having guns, and with the advent of this, now you don't need to practice the swords and the spears because this is gonna get you. Obviously still good to practice it, but you get the idea. So now, it'd be good to practice with this to learn how to use this. So that's where now we shifted from weaponry to actually doing it for fun. That's really what it is. We do karate and stuff because it's more for fun. Because if you're talking about combat self-defense, you want a weapon. That's martial arts. The whole martial arts, what it means, martial, the term martial means war. Look it up literally. So the actual definition, because I guess people just think of martial arts nowadays just like karate, having fun, kia, hey-ya, hey, hey-ya, hey-ya. That's not martial art. I mean, it is modern, it's modern martial arts, but I mean, yet again, martial literally means war. So it's literally called the warring arts. So if you think you're studying the warring arts, you think you're not going to use weapons, it was weaponry. It was all based on weaponry. That's what these blocks were designed for, it's weaponry. They too, when you talk about this type of stuff, what do they also have next? What do they also have in war? They had armor. Armor to protect myself from the weapons. Especially samurai. This is where the advent of throws came from. Because, there, that's a samurai. Okay, because if I try to punch this guy, it's not gonna work. He has armor, it's gonna hurt my hand. But a lock is still gonna work with armor. A throw is still gonna work with armor. And that's gonna work better because they're heavier. That's why the Japanese invented the throwing and the locking systems. And then from that, through hundreds of years, they practice on the ground fighting. And then Brazil developed it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But you see, that is the progression. That it started with war. It started with how to defeat someone with armor. You can't punch them. You can't punch them out with armor. We're gonna use locks and throws. Then it was okay, well, how do you fight on the ground? The Japanese had very basic locks, like arm bars and so on the ground, but then over time, with peacetime, you have guys like Kato, I think it's Kano, not Kato, sorry. Kano, I'm pretty sure like the modern inventor of judo. And this is probably like in like the 1900s. Look it up, it's on Wikipedia. In fact, the early 1900s is when Kano came around. He studied and practiced jiu-jitsu and further developed the art into more empty-hand ground fighting and throwing. And from that, he developed the modern day jiu-jitsu. And then what he developed went to Brazil. The Brazilians, the Gracie family, the Machados, developed Brazilian jiu-jitsu. which specifically works on the ground. They still have a little stand up, but it specifically works on the ground. So this is how martial arts developed. All of them start with war, how to fight some old armor with swords and weaponry. And then over time, they develop. And then over time, it develops. That's how martial arts works. That's super important to understand that. But that's the problem. 90% of your black belts don't know this stuff. And this is why I think so many guys shouldn't teach. If they don't know this, how can they teach you blocking? They don't know it. But that's so, it's sad, and it's sad. And yeah, a 22-year-old teaching this. But this is why, and this is where martial arts came from. If you can understand that, then you can understand why and how it works. That's the biggest thing I'm trying to show. That all the faith forms you see, some are just not practical, yes, but others, it was training weaponry, training grappling, and the guys that went to war knew the practical application. Yet again, to talk about it, the guys that invented this stuff were warriors. These guys fought and killed, they knew what they're doing. These guys invented the forms. But since you gotta think, to even live long enough to be able to do this, you gotta be pretty good at fighting. So to be able to pass this on and to train this empty hand, he had been a master. But he understood how and why the forms worked in that practical application. But when you have a long line of lineage and you teach it to this person, to this person, to this person, to this person, this person, this person, this person, all the way down to you, it gets lost in translation. It's that old. That's one reason why people don't understand how it works. Other reason is because so many traditional martial artists keep secrets. They don't tell the real techniques. They hide the techniques. That's a whole different conversation I can talk about. I don't agree with. But that's the other reason why, is that the masters always held back information. When they taught this stuff, the reason why, yet again, this stuff, it works, and the people that made the system knows how it works, they can use it. But the students and the next generation, they didn't know the techniques that well because masters, they held back information. Why did they hold back? Why did I not teach your students? Because, long story short, if I'm the master and I'm getting old now, and it's the young, fresh student, and he challenges me, I need to have some secret techniques I didn't teach him. So that when we fight, I get the W, I win. And even without weaponry, just in general, when they used to do challenge matches and stuff, this is how it worked. The masters didn't teach everything they knew because if someone challenges me, if my student challenges me, I need to have something in my back pocket. I didn't show them. Do that for generations, hundreds of years, you lose stuff, it gets watered down mess. That's what Bruce Lee was trying to fight against. Bruce Lee, go back to this a little bit, not too much, but Bruce Lee knew that creating a system ultimately standardizes it. It makes it the same. Everyone's doing that, everyone's and it gets lost in translation because over time, decades, if you standardize it, it gets lost in translation. People don't know what the actual technique's for, and also there is no personalization. There is no how to do it for each individual because we're all different. That's a big thing too. But a lot of these guys, it gets lost in translation and it gets watered down over time eventually. It's the sad part, but there's a lot of reasons it does that, but that's one of them. They hide the techniques to get standardized. This is why a lot of stuff, they don't understand why this stuff works. And again, ask a black belt. Please ask them. Ask them. Don't give them any hints. Why do we block like this? They're not going to say weaponry. Because they don't know. And it's sad, but that's why I don't think they should be teaching, because they don't know enough to teach. They don't know where it comes from and why we don't do blocking anymore, because it's for weapons. That's why the best fighters is parrying, is covering, and last case scenario is blocking. Last case, but really I'm trying to hit you, I'm trying to cover, I'm trying to get out the way. Head movement, get out the way, movement. Muhammad Ali, one of the best boxers, what do he do? Footwork, movement. That's super important. You don't want to block. That's the whole thing I'm trying to show you, that with weaponry, that's where it came from. That's where the martial arts evolved from. And that what they would teach soldiers is simple, dirty tactics. If you lost, go for the eyes, because I'm stuck in two when you talk about the olden days. These were tough men, farmers, laborers, warriors, tough guys, blacksmiths. They were tough. So I could jam my finger in your eye and not get hurt at all. Without really any technique. I could learn that and just do that the next day. I mean, they could do that, and it works because it's simple, and it was just made. All the martial arts started out with a little bit, just enough to run and find the weapon, to go in and finish the fight and to finish this guy. That's what it was designed for. And so weaponry is very quick. It's very, very quick. That's the biggest thing. That's why when they did train, they only trained weapons. They didn't really train empty hand a lot, because if you got a weapon, you're gonna move faster. I'm gonna move very much faster. It's hard to defend that, and so that's why they train a lot with this. But in peacetime, when now they won the war, now they played around with what they learned with this, but now we practice with empty hands. We play with it, and we develop it, and that's where it gets down to us. It gets down the modern way. The modernized way is empty hand, and that's just how it is nowadays for sport, for fun, street fighting, whatever. But the weapons is not as big of an emphasis nowadays because of guns and whatnot. People just don't know. But that is it for today's video. If you like this, don't click away. I have a $10 course, $10 a month. The link in the description. Go check it out. If not, that supports me. And doing more videos like this. My goal is to teach for free, all this good stuff. Go do that if you want. If you don't, hit the subscribe button. That is more important. That is way more important. Hit the subscribe. That's gonna help me a lot. It's gonna help you see more videos like this. Let me know if you liked this video. Let me know if you didn't like it. And without the way, keep training. See you next time. Peace. Stay safe. Keep training. See you guys.